It's just back playing like that.
All right, nice.
They're very bad. Good standard.
We'll do a good shot of the. Let me join the Zoom actually so I can see what.
Because
No.
you know, I didn't watch the game more than me, so I thought I might have saw that.
No. No.
It was the final was. Yeah, and they lost. So we go. And I'm looking at cafe, watching the cafe. Yeah.
What's it fake?
No, people play yes, or yeah. Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Okay, then the microphone.
Should it be good? So, great. And I have coffee now. That's also great. Oh, Connor, I need to ask a very important favor of you. Very early into my slideshow, I'm going to say something like, I'm experiencing some technical difficulties. And at this point in time, you need to hand me this booklet. Might even like open it to where the blue thing is, and then hand it to me. You know, keep it close for now, but it's secret. Yes. No, you should then open it to there. Right. Open it to that and hand it to me.
Right, yes.
And you know, maybe mime getting my attention or something like that. It's some pantomime. It's technical difficulties and like there'll be a big tree on the screen. You'll know the moment when it happens.
Are you streaming your slides?
I'm streaming the slides, yes.
It's not viewable on the.
Oh, that's what you meant with like streaming your slides. Ah, right. So, okay. Chairs, pieces of trees.
Tomorrow I have a medicine review with the
This life is getting tricky.
Oh my god, now I need to hide these things.
Yeah, perfect.
How do I even hide these things again? I want to hide this right away.
I jumped up a wait list, so I'm currently like.
When you get the NHS,
There we go.
Yes, yeah, actually.
I will figure out how to even if I have
Thank you.
Oh.
Sorry.
There you go.
Yeah. Loaded question.
Yeah.
Right.
I've got to talk.
Okay. So, are we ready to begin? Let's see. First of all, is there any news?
Yes, actually.
yes, there is news.
1 sec, we're just getting the
Okay.
mic ready.
Great.
Well, okay. This is not important as far as our viewers are concerned. It's that I'm suddenly, I mean, there's no way not to be suddenly short-staffed for CS 1 and 3 tomorrow. So I would welcome help from anyone, and try and deliver suitable training in no time.
I mean, if it's just for tomorrow, I can do that.
It's just for tomorrow.
Yeah, if you can talk about that.
Yeah.
I'm happy.
Can you do a quick mic test?
A quick mic test. 1, 2, 3.
Perfect.
Great. Okay, so I have prepared a presentation that's like a full hour, so we might run over a bit. But yeah. Right. Are we ready to begin? Okay. Then welcome everyone to my talk about species of trees. It was actually a presentation I was gonna give right before Christmas, but due to circumstances beyond my control, couldn't at that moment, didn't manage to give it, so I'm giving it now. So let's talk about species of trees. We all love trees. But what are species? So a combinatorial species is defined, it's got a bit of a complex definition, or rather what I mean is that at first glance, it's very hard to grasp what this means. So you take, first of all, the category of finite bijections, which are finite sets with bijections. You could call this the core of a fin set, if you want. A combinatorial species is a functor, or equivalently a presheaf, on, so from finite bijections to set. Because it's a symmetric category, presheaf is the same, right? Now what this is it is in fact a generalization of a generating function from combinatorics. So if you have some kind of family of combinatorial structures, let's say graphs or linear orders or cycles or anything like that, you can sort of count how many there are of size n. And then if you take that number multiplied by xn, sum over all of the n, you get a generating function for your combinatorial family. So rather than just summing over the numbers, what we're doing here is we're adding data into this number, right? We're not just saying, for the set of n elements, we get some number of structures. Rather, we get some set of structures that is permuted as you permute the points that they're on, right? So if you have a graph on n points and you permute the points, then you're also changing the shape of the graph. And you can do all sorts of very fun combinatorial and generating function like stuff with it. You can do derivatives, you can do products, you can do, I don't know, maybe use inversion probably. It's all really good. So here's some very simple examples. So of course, if you have a set of states, a combinatorial structure on that set of states could be, you pick one of them. And then you get exactly that is your set of structures then. You can also pick a subset of your set of states. And so that also gives you a species. And again, if you have an isomorphism between two sets, then you can transfer a subset over. But you can do more interesting things such as involutions, which are functions that are their own inverse. And so, and here you can also see, like, you can start doing like equations, right? Where instead of an involution is the same as dividing your state space into two subsets. And for one of them, you give a perfect matching. So that's where your involution is actually switching things. And on the other side, you don't give any other data because that's where all the fixed points are. And of course, you might also imagine that there is a species of trees. In fact, there might be many, many different species of trees, because what is a tree? There are many, many different accounts of what a tree is. And so I want to move on now to, sir?
Make a comment. All three of these examples, they could be going into fin set.
Yes, that's true.
So what's a non-finite example?
Ooh. So, I mean, you could go into like R-valued functions, for instance. I think because this is from a combinatorial perspective that I'm coming at it from, you tend to get finite things. But yeah.
Okay.
So now I want to move on to, what is a tree? Sorry, what is a tree? Wait, what is, come on, what is a tree? Okay, sorry, what is, okay, I think, sorry, I think I'm experiencing some weird technical issues. Wait, sorry, what's going on here? Okay, I've just been handed some ominous note. It reads, we are displeased. We are disrespected. We have taken Joe. Oh my God, Joe's my partner. If you do not give us our due, you will not see him again. It's signed by the trees. I'm very sorry, everyone. It seems that when the trees of the forest have read the announcement for this talk, they thought it was going to be about them. And now they're really not happy. So I think I need to make a pivot here and start talking about something else entirely. Let's see, where do I have it? Come on. Right, I have another presentation. Is my screen share still going all right, or do you need to fix it?
You're good.
Great. So, what's a species? So, I'm not really going to define what a species is for various reasons. For one is that nobody really knows. Just last year, a species of ant was discovered that can actually reproduce with a different species of ant, and its offspring will be of that other species. So anything you think about like making viable offspring is a bad definition for species. What we can say about species, though, is that they arrange in some kind of evolutionary tree, right? You get some species at some point in time, and then it might evolve into two different species where they split off at a certain point in time. And so this is the broad structure of like multicellular life on Earth, where like you have this big soup of microbes, has been there since like eons, right? And at some point, it evolved to become multicellular. And on the one hand, you have like this branch where you get animals and fungi. They're actually really closely related together. Fun fact. On the other side, you get plants. And it's the kingdom of plants that I want to talk about today, specifically trees. But before talking about trees, I want to just give a high-level overview of like what the structure of the kingdom of plants is like. So very at the base, you've got moss, which is a very simple kind of plant, and it doesn't really have much vascular structure inside of it. And then when you move on, you move into some kind of vascular plants. They have more internal structure. And then branches off, like the lycophytes branch off. These are weird, they're called club mosses as well. There's like only a few of them, and they're really like the small ones, and they don't really matter. Moving to this side, though, you get leaves, right? Everything in this branch has leaves. And as you branch away, you get ferns. And those are the last ones with spores. And everything over here starts to have seeds. Right? So these are more complex, kind of like reproductive structures. And then the seeded plants, they actually split into two halves. There's the gymnosperm and the angiosperm. And the sperm means seed, so that's why they're called that. It's like the naked seed and I actually don't know what angiosperm, it probably means covered seed. But the angiosperms, those are the flowering plants specifically. And so those are basically most plants that you know. Most plants, most plants that you like come across in your daily life, are probably, or that you can think of, they're going to be flowering plants. Interestingly, even though these are like really widespread and really successful, they're very recent. They basically started evolving right towards the end of dinosaur times. And then after that big extinction, they actually managed to like take advantage of that and become the dominant type of plant on Earth. But the gymnosperms are also still sticking around. So that's a bit about, the structure of the kingdom of plants. Let's see. So what is a tree? Now, a tree might be, maybe it's like, a tree is just like some kind of specific plant that's in angiosperms, right? No. A tree is something that looks like this, or looks like this, or looks like that. And that's all we can say what a tree is. I mean, actually, there's something more specific here, which is that they have to have some stem, some big stem that's made of wood, that's very rigid, and is, making them be quite tall. And so that's what a tree is. It's got a big wooden stem that, pushes up into the air. And then that, it's got leaves around it as well. But... Yes?
You're leaving out the most important bit.
What?
The roots.
Oh, yes, it's got roots. Yes, but I mean, that's kind of, so I'm not showing them here, but you need roots in order to be stable, right? If you don't have any roots and you're very big and tall, then you're going to topple over, right? So they're all going to have roots. But it is a good point. We're going to talk more about roots later. Yeah. And so, okay, so we know a bit more about the structure of the kingdom of plants. We know what trees are. Let's have a fun time looking at some species of trees. Let's start with the beech. It's Fagus sylvaticus. It's the European beech. And it's kind of like one of your most prototypical trees. If you start walking around any kind of city, in a park or whatever, you'll see a bunch of beeches. They have lovely leaves. As you can see here, they're a bit fuzzy. Got these nice flowers. They're very small. I think they use a lot of wind dispersal. And here's a really nice, big, sprawling example. This is actually a weeping beech. So you might have heard of weeping willows. Those are like willow trees where the branches are kind of like floppy, and so they start drooping down. That happens not just to willows, it also happens to birches and beeches, amongst others. And if you look it up, it turns out, actually, weeping beeches, they're actually really recent. Like, it's a very disadvantageous, it's not an advantageous mutation, right? So actually in nature it probably wouldn't survive, but because humans really like it for decorative purposes, humans propagate it, right? So the first one was found at around like 1836 by this guy, John Claudius Loudon, and then it was brought to America in 1847, and it became like this really lovely landmark tree at NYC, which sadly died in the late 90s, but yeah.
Was this all fact checked?
Yeah, so this is all wrong. So, I mean, so AI didn't come up with this, right? It copied this from a bunch of websites that are all repeating the same wrong information. But if you start digging around, it's true. John Claudius Loudon was a very prominent horticulturalist in the mid-19th century in Britain. And he wrote a really big encyclopedia of woody shrubs and trees in the British Isles. And he talks about the weeping beech. And he mentions that a really nice specimen was found in 1934. Oops, wrong year. And also, sorry?
Around 36.
It's around 36, but so in that sense, it might be true, but also why would you say that, right? He also doesn't mention that he's the one who found it. He actually attributes the finding to someone else. I think there's various accounts from the mid-19th century of people finding these weeping beeches. The one that was brought over to America as a graft actually didn't come from Britain at all. It came from Belgium. So that's also not correct. It is true that it became a landmark and it died in 1998. That's true. But it came from Belgium, and where the Belgian one came from, I haven't been able to find out. But the other thing, of course, is that so I really took a lot of effort to find good sources, and in fact, I found one good source that actually cited its sources, and it cites Loudon and a bunch of other guys, and it says the following thing. It would be foolish to attempt to categorize the weeping beeches too precisely. So at that point, I gave up, right? I was like, I'm not going to try this. But it seems that actually, it's not that rare of a mutation. It happens a bunch of times in nature. And people have just found various stocks of these grafts that have then spread over throughout the world. And some of them are different shapes. Some of them are spreading out. Some of them are really tall. Just there are multiple different lineages of weeping beeches. And for biologists, this doesn't matter at all, because it's just like with dogs. all dogs are species dog, even though they look very different. Same true here. It's only interesting to horticulturalists, not to botanists. But yeah, so issues with beaches. Let's move on to something else, which is, so what I would also like to do, I would have probably liked to kind of show you a bit more where the beech is within the family of trees, like within the angiosperms. But the problem is that angiosperm taxonomy, like the internal structure of the clade of angiosperms, is nightmarish. And I'm going to show you just a little example of this. So this is a little clade within the angiosperms, which is called the comelinids. And it splits into essentially 3 branches. These two are a little bit closer, and then that branch splits into 2 quite closely related subclades. So that the comelinales, the zingiberales, the poales, and the aracales. And now the comelinales, these are these lovely like little flowering plants. They're not orchids. Orchids are elsewhere in the angiosperms, but they have like lovely flowers and they're nice decorative plants. And the zingiberales are bananas and gingers and all sorts of other things. Yeah, oh, that's a bit surprising. And then poales is grasses. All grasses, and like it includes like cereal grains and stuff like that. Note again, so these are really recent. The grass wasn't around for dinosaur times. So dinosaurs were not eating grass because there was no grass. They ate most like ground covering was mostly like shrubs and ferns and stuff like that, not grass. Right, and the aracales, palm trees. And this is what I mean, trees are everywhere. Not just everywhere on Earth, but everywhere within like the kingdom of plants. Trees are everywhere, right? And they'll pop up wherever you least expect them. It's like, oh, right next to grasses, you get palm trees. Anyway.
Do bananas include the tree that the bananas grow on?
Yeah. What I mean is like, you know, you get a banana plant right there. A banana plant is a maybe bit tree-like, but it's more like a shrub, I think. I didn't look too closely at the bananas. I just thought this fact mainly was like super interesting, that like palm trees and grasses are right next to each other. Yeah. Right, so that's angiosperms. Let's move over to the gymnosperms. And gymnosperms are much nicer. Gymnosperms actually have an internal structure that makes sense, or at least some sense, right? So it splits into these 2 branches, and over here, most stuff is over here. Right, so you've got the cypresses. There's a lovely avenue of redwood trees. And redwood trees, of course, everyone knows, they grow in Scotland. Yes, Scotland has an incredibly large population of redwood trees because in the 19th century, again, you know, Scottish people loved the redwood trees. They got them over, planted a bunch of them, and none of them are like the giant redwood trees because they're all too young. But that's actually in Argyll. There's like a nice botanic gardens in Argyll, and it has the famous like redwood alley. Then over here you've got monkey puzzle trees. You might know them from like various gardens. They're also called like snake pines, where they have like these very spiny kind of needles right next to the branches. They're not branching very wide. Although that specific monkey puzzle is depicted there is the Wollemi pine. And it is in a branch of monkey puzzles that was thought extinct for millions of years until the 1980s. In a very remote valley in Australia, they found about 60 of them. And then they kept that secret for a year. And then they came in with helicopters to airlift a bunch of them out in order to keep them like preserved or whatever, so that like they wouldn't get poached or like destroyed or anything like that. There is also a brand of wine from Australia that's known as like Wollemi, and that's what it's referring to, and it's like, it works on me, right? Right, so we've got pine trees over here. That's just like your nice Christmas tree. I think this is like a Nordmann pine or something like that. Right next to it, you've got these horribly weird ones. I'm not going to talk about this guy. This guy's a Welwitschia. It's not a tree, so it's not part of this presentation. But look up what this is in your own time. I can really recommend it. It's bizarre. Right, so then on this side we have a nice branch with cycads. That's another like palm-looking guy, but it is not a palm because, of course, it's not even a flowering plant, and like the palm trees are flowering plants. So this is, it's called a cycad. And they're like not too uncommon in like tropical places or whatever. They also, so they don't make flowers, but they make these like really big cones, also known as like strobulus. That's like a male kind of cone and a female cone that like does a different kind of thing. They're really nice. Actually, when cycads, when they fossilize in history, they make these really beautiful chunks of opal. It's like really shimmering and pearlescent. It's really gorgeous. There's like a national park in the US. I think it's in Utah, but it might be elsewhere. It's called Fossil Cycad National Park, where in the 19th century, they found just like this big site with like, I think even hundreds of fossil cycads and like perfectly preserved. And so they were like, right, we need to make this a national park. We need to like get tourists in here. And it worked. And it became a big hit. And everyone came to this Fossil Cycad National Park to admire the cycads. And of course, they wanted a souvenir. And so people started taking them. And they kept taking them. And right now, there are no fossil cycads in Fossil Cycad National Park. They're all gone. They've all been gobbled up by collectors. Because apparently you could just do that in the 19th century. Like,
It's like British colonialists turned up.
I think this was just US Americans. But it might have been the British. I mean, it might have been anyone. Anyway, you might notice that there's like a little branch unlabeled here. And that's the reveal. It's ginkgos. I mean, how is it not a reveal? It's a ginkgo tree. Look at that. That looks like a deciduous tree. It looks like it should be an angiosperm. Right? It drops its leaves in winter. It's got the very broad-shaped leaves. They become yellow and they drop. That's all things an angiosperm does. Why is it over here in the gymnosperms? Well, so it was the angiosperm before angiosperms. If you go back to before angiosperms took over, ginkgos were everywhere. They were the kings. They were just on top. Everywhere around the world, massive forests made up of just ginkgos. And there are these lovely trees, and they have these lovely leaves that like turn really nice and golden in autumn. They have this lovely fan shape. They're really popular as like decorative motifs. People get like tattoos of them, and there's like jewelry and like patterns and clothes.
Is that the ginkgo biloba tree?
Yeah, ginkgo biloba, yes. It's the only species left. All of the other ones are gone. So this is a story which I didn't have time to verify, but I've heard that it basically died out everywhere on Earth except in a small refugium in China until the Japanese discovered it, and they became a big fan of its decorative properties, and so they started propagating it more and more. But yeah, you can see, so I mean, maybe you can't see it from this distance, but if you look at a ginkgo leaf, you can see that like the internal structure of the leaf has all of these like radiating lines, because it originates essentially as like a cluster of needles that like fuse together, and then you get a leaf. But yeah, they used to be really, they're like really important like flowers in paleobotany, or flowers, trees in paleobotany. And they're also really nice, and they're also in Glasgow. Like you can walk around and you can see them planted as decorative trees because they're really nice. I really love them. They also, so they don't shed their leaves just like a normal deciduous tree does. Like a beech tree will like shed its leaves like basically one by one over the course of like weeks, where they like turn yellow or brown at different rates, and like they fall off at different rates. A ginkgo will like get entirely yellow over its entirety, and then like shed all of its leaves over the course of like a day, 3 days maybe. It's really different because it evolved this behavior of being deciduous entirely independently. But this ginkgo tree is going to be our wormhole back into time. Because really what I want to talk about is, oh no, this is good, yes. I want to talk about trees from the past. So we arrive all the way up there, the Quaternary, and then when the orange and the green, that boundary, Paleogene Cretaceous, that's the big extinction of the dinosaurs. So this is a tree from the dinosaur age. This is Tempskia, and it is in fact a fern. See, angiosperms killed everything. Like they became so dominant. Yeah, so the gymnosperms survived as trees, but everything else was relegated to the sidelines. But prior to the angiosperms, anything could be a tree. A fern could be a tree. And it's really lovely. And if you go back in time further, here we go, there's our ginkgos again. Look, we're all the way back in the Jurassic. Dinosaurs are stomping around, and there's the ginkgos, because they're on top of the world right now. And then we go further back in time, and this is Lepidopteris. It is what's known as a seed fern, because these leaves, like it looks like it's just like the Tempskia, a big fern. But it's not a fern because it has seeds. There are no seed ferns around anymore. They all went extinct. But during this time, the Triassic and the Permian, seed ferns were everywhere. And they posed a big problem to early paleobotanists. Yeah, sorry.
How come the fern used to grow as a tree but now it's linked?
So because of climate change, they went extinct, and then something else filled this niche.
I see. Yes.
And maybe there's something else was even like slightly better at filling the niche than it was, so it couldn't refill it.
Yeah.
That's just how evolution works. And this is a very, very long period of time, right? This is millions of years. So things rise and fall, and that's just how it happens. Yes.
Do angiosperms dominate because covered seeds are more efficient means of?
It might be. I mean, also because using flowers allows you to exploit insects for dispersal, which is really good. I think they also have various innovations in their metabolism of various types of carbon. Like there's all sorts of really weird, like combined advantages that just like made them really successful. I don't think it's like any one killer bullet. It's just a bunch of things together. But yeah, so these were seed ferns. I have at home, I have two really lovely Elethopteris fossils. One of them definitely, in fact, from Britain somewhere. Yeah, there were loads of like seed ferns, which are fern-like, but they had seeds. Actually, this is also a good, by the way, you might notice that this presentation meanders a lot, although I would prefer to call it branching. Right, because here's actually a problem in paleobotany, right? Let's say you find a seed fossil, and then you go along and then you find a leaf fossil. Are these from the same tree? How can you tell? Well, sometimes you can't tell, and so that's why paleobotanists assign to each part of the plant a different taxonomic name, a different like scientific formal name, right? So the leaf has a particular name, and the seed has a particular name, and the wood has a particular name, and the bark impression has a particular name, and the roots have a particular name. And sometimes you can tell, yes, so this seed and this leaf came from the same organism that you then also give a particular scientific name, but sometimes you can't tell. So that's really fun. Oh, also pollen. Pollen fossilizes extremely well, and very often is the only thing we have left of a particular plant, just as pollen. Right, let's go back into the Permian. This is a really lovely reconstructed early Permian ecosystem from the Karoo Basin in what's now southern Africa. And you can see loads of things are being preserved here. They have got like these liverworts, which I didn't talk about, but they're like moss, but rather than being like having these little strands, they just have like these big sheets.
Are those bryophytes?
Yes, so these are the bryophytes that they have retained. They also have like mosses with like these like spore capsules. So these trees are like Glossopteris, which are very like ginkgos, but I think they're a bit like a mystery of where exactly within the kingdom of plants they really are supposed to be placed. They've got these leaves that are borne in what's known as whorls, which are like lovely like spiral shapes of leaves. And you can see that they found like various like cones as well. That's like that insect. And they can find all sorts of like little insects and invertebrate fossils as well, which you usually don't find. Like these are really delicate. But in this particular find, they found all of this. They found like a water mite and a leech and all sorts of really lovely things. So look up the Karoo River Basin. Oh yeah, and here you can see like nice horsetails or whatever. Horsetails I didn't have in this presentation. Horsetails also became trees. Everything becomes a tree sometimes. Right, and so now Permian, we're past dinosaurs, right? And so this is really a lovely space to be. Permian, like this is when the trilobites go extinct at the end of Permian, if you know about trilobites. And now we go to the Carboniferous, which is the origin of wood. And our little lycophytes are going to come back and play the starring role in a major way. Let me introduce you to Lepidodendron, which is my favorite tree. I love Lepidodendron. And this is a reconstruction. This is a club moss. This doesn't have seeds, right? This is a spore plant. A modern one looks like this. You can see like that little like yellow thing in the background, that's like the club, right? And that's its reproductive structure. In this one, you can see that there's cones that are born right at the end of the branches. So why is it called Lepidodendron? So that means scale tree, and is named that way because of these kind of fossils. So this is a bark impression, and you can see that there's all sorts of like little diamond-shaped scales, a nice pattern of scales on it. These are leaf scars. So as it grows, leaves start growing at sort of the tip where it's growing, but then as it grows beyond that point, those leaves sort of fall off again, and they leave behind a really nice little scar. And so that creates this lovely diamond pattern of scales on the bark. And that's also where, so originally Lepidodendron referred just to the bark impression fossil. The root fossil was known as Stigmaria. And in fact, Stigmaria can also refer to the roots of a slightly different organism, which is Sigillaria, which looks very, very similar to this, but it's slightly different. You can also see that like the way that the branches and the roots split of this organism is known as biramus. They always split exactly in two. If you look at like a beech tree, say, like, you know, a branch can just split off wherever, basically. Here they always split neatly into like two like equally sized sub-branches. So this is a very nice binary tree. And the roots are very, very shallow. So they like standing in like really nice wet, like clayey soil that was kind of hard to penetrate. So they just like made big mats of roots to hold themselves stable. But they're also actually really evil and nasty. These are like the worst bastards of the history of the Earth, second to us. Because what happened was they stood in nice waterlogged soil, they fell over, you know, got underwater, turned into peat. And peat gets buried underground, pressured down, turns into coal. You see, the geological era that these grow in is called the Carboniferous. Most geological eras are named after a place, right? The Jurassic is named after the Jura. Permian is named after Permian, Russia. And the Devonian named after Devon. That's true. That's actually what it's named after. Carboniferous means carbon bearing. This is the parts of the rocks where you find the carbon. And this is where the carbon comes from. At this time in Earth's history, loads of carbon dioxide in the air was being absorbed by all of these trees, turned into carbon inside their trunks. They fell over, nothing ate them. All that carbon got locked up inside the Earth until now, when we're digging it up and burning it up again into the atmosphere. So that's a big problem. In fact, there is a little bit of an extra twist to the story, which is that then this is, you know, not entirely, this is a bit of a hypothesis, like it's very hard to confirm this exactly, but one of the big reasons why we think that they managed to lock up so much carbon at this time is because this is when wood first appeared. And wood is a very, very tough material. You can tell because there's basically no animal that eats wood, right? If you think about it, what animal even eats wood? Maybe termites, but I don't even know if they eat it or just use it for their nests. Beavers definitely only use it for the dams. They don't eat it. And so, you know, wood is really hard to digest. And so it took a really long time for even microorganisms and fungi to be able to digest it. And so for millions of years, as these trunks fell, there wasn't anything around to digest them. It just couldn't get put back into the atmosphere. There was nothing that could do it. So that's pretty nice. Another fun thing about lepidodendron, though, which I discovered only spring last year, is that actually Glasgow has one of the best preserved sites of lepidodendron in the entire world. It's depicted right here. This is a picture from 1977. And this is the fossil grove in Victoria Park in the west of Glasgow. And it's 7 trunks of lepidodendron preserved in situ, i.e. where they stood. They stood in the bed of a shallow stream, but then there was a big mudslide that killed them, but preserved the trunks where they stood. You can also, like, in the like soil, in the earth layers, you can see where the stream ran. They discovered this in, I think, the 1890s when they were trying to find a mine somewhere, but they discovered this and they were like, hang on, we gotta stop building a mine here and just preserve this. I think they took one of them, and one of them is currently on display in Kelvin Grove. So you can go to Kelvin Grove Art Gallery Museum and see a lovely lepidodendron trunk. I discovered this spring last year, and I realized I really want to go and view and see them, right? See them in real life, because like I am, kind of like the biggest lepidodendron fan, at least in Glasgow, right? And then I went there, and it turned out that they were closed for renovations. Because like they're being housed, right, in like a climate-controlled, like protective like house, right? But it was like getting dated, and so they needed to re-update it. And I think there was like even a leak, so they had to like fix the leak. But they have a nice blog that they like update with like how are the renovations going. It was planned to reopen, I think, November. The last update was from the 1st of December. And I've been refreshing the page, and I want to know when I can go visit the lepidodendrons in Victoria Park. So, I mean, I'll keep you updated. But yeah.
Yeah, I'm surprised you're planning to reopen it, because it's been closed for years. They didn't have any funding to do anything. But
Yeah.
Which one is this Glasgow Green?
Victoria Park,
Victoria Park, yeah.
I used to live around the corner.
But yeah, no. So the renovations, they look nice, and they were getting pretty far. They fixed the roof. So yeah. Yes, sorry.
I have a lycopodium powder.
Oh.
Is made from the bark of lycophytes.
Yes, I mean that makes sense. I mean,
Yes.
if going by the name, I would say yes.
Which is a highly inflammable powder. And,
Oh.
so when I was younger, I used to buy lycopodium powder and light it on fire. Big flashes.
That's really nice. But yeah, so that's really nice. So we've journeyed through time back to the dawn of trees, of wood, because I told you, right, like a tree has to have like this big woody stem, and this is when it first appeared, right? Or did it? See, this is where the story gets a real big twist. You see, we're going to go back one further step to a geological period before the Carboniferous, which is the Devonian. And this is when life on Earth first appeared. I want to show you this landscape, which is the Rhynie Chert, or rather, this is what it would have looked like. So chert is a type of rock. And Rhynie is a village in the north of Scotland. And if you go there, I mean, you can't go there now because it's protected, right? But they found this early Devonian landscape, perfectly preserved. So what this was, so you can see there's like really early plants, there's also lichens there, there's fungi already on land. They even found like a fungi pathogen. There's little arthropods scuttling around. But you can also see that this is an area with all sorts of like thermal activity, right? There's all these geysers. And so what would happen was these geysers would periodically erupt and spread mineral-rich, silica-rich water over the surface. But as the water cooled rapidly, the silica would rapidly drop out of solution and freeze everything right where it stood. And it would do this so perfectly and delicately that individual cells were preserved. So we can tell that there was a fungus pathogen. We can tell that there were these trigonotarbids running around, which are very close relatives of spiders. We can tell the structure of their lungs because those tiny details were perfectly preserved. The Rhynie church is one of the great wonders of paleontology on this earth, and it should really be much more well known. So this is the time frame that we're talking about, right? We've got these tiny plants, we've got lichens, and they're just colonizing the land, right? Because there's no soil before any plants, right? Soil is made by organisms. So before that, there's just bare rock. And so this is, the project of ecological colonization. But at this time, from these rocks, we find Prototaxites, which is a very enigmatic fossil. Is this really big trunk, and they could get like several meters long, right? And so this was found by a guy called Dawson, or rather, he was the first to describe the fossil. It was found in the 1830s, but only described in the 1850s by Dawson, who looked at this kind of log and said, "Wow, I mean, this has to be a big wooden rotting log." And he looked into it, and he could find like insect burrows into the material of the log. And he could even, with a microscope, discern like fungi inside of it, like decomposing it as it was rotting. And so he reconstructed it as this, this kind of looking roughly like this. He called it Prototaxites, which means like primitive yew. Yew means Y-E-W, which is a kind of pine tree. And here's a lovely picture of it, of a beautiful fossil wood. Except it's not wood at all. Like I said, wood's first at the Carboniferous. This is not wood. This is not a good reconstruction of Prototaxites. And they figured it out pretty soon, right? The second person looked at this fossil and was like, well, under a microscope, of course. And he's like, well, this doesn't look like wood in structure at all, right? It's way too stringy and filamentous. And then the second guy said, well, it has to just be like a big old clump of algae. That they're a big old clump of aquatic algae that got fossilized, and it's not a big log at all, right? The second hypothesis, even worse, because it was very clearly terrestrial. So it couldn't be a big clump of aquatic algae, it had to be a big clump on land. So how did it form? Well, this languished for over a century until 2001, when people had another look at it. And what they discovered was, it's a big fungus. There were these really towering spires. They were basically like big mushrooms. Right? There were these fruiting bodies of fungi. And this was a controversial hypothesis at first, but then it's more and more evidence rose that was yes, it has to be a fungus, right? And the burrowing of the arthropods into it actually, that has held up. So it might be that the arthropods were definitely burrowing into these guys. It could be that in fact, that is the exact behavior that then got adapted to trees once they appeared. Because, arthropods love digging into trees. This is where they learned it, from Prototaxites, a big fungus. And these are really alien, because they're nothing like fungus that we have, right? We don't have something like this. Breaking news, 21st of January, 2026.
I saw this.
5 days ago. Prototaxites is not a fungus. They analyzed it, right? They looked at, they got chemical analysis, really powerful microscopes, and they figured out it's definitely very different from all fungi, because they couldn't find any chitin. Now, chitin is, what is chitin? It's a protein, and it's most famously used by insects to make their carapaces, their exoskeleton, because it's just a pretty rigid, strong protein. But in fact, mushrooms and fungi also use it for their cellular structure and cellular integrity. This is also why you can't overcook a mushroom, because chitin is really resistant to high temperatures. So if you put a mushroom like in a pot and you let it simmer for an hour, the mushroom will come out perfect. You can't overcook the mushroom because the chitin is so resistant and so resilient.
I didn't know Gromov did biology as well.
Oh yeah, yeah. I don't know. Yeah, I mean these are our colleagues from Edinburgh who are doing this. But in fact, the wonderful thing about chitin is because it is so resilient, it also it remains within fossils from way back when in the Devonian. You can still see the chitin, but Prototaxites had none of it. So it couldn't be a fungus. Now, of course, this is, you can argue this, right? Because, right, maybe, fungi back then didn't use chitin, but they do now, right? Like it's possible that, fungi back then just were different than the fungi are right now. Now they use chitin, back then they maybe didn't, right? So here's what they did. They compared it to the fungi from the Rhine chert. Because in the Rhine chert, there was fungus. And in the Rhine chert, all the fungus was using chitin. Okay, but maybe Prototaxites was just like from somewhere else, that there were like two different lineages of fungi. No, Prototaxites is in the Rhine chert. They had them right next to each other. So you can totally see that the Prototaxites was not at all related to all of the different fungi that were there at the Rhine chert. Prototaxites, confirmed, not a fungus. What is it? Well, right now they've sort of put it into a new kingdom. I don't think we need to read this as like they're proposing there is a brand new kingdom. It's just like we have no place for it. It's a form of life that we don't know where it goes. And so, all those millions of years ago, and they're still breaking news. And that's what's really lovely about trees and paleobotany. We get these lovely insights into the deep, deep past. Anyway, that was it. Hope you enjoyed the trees. And I hope the trees also enjoyed it, because I would like to see Joe again sometime.
I'm now imagining that there are Cornish paleobotanists who hotly dispute this whole theory about what happened in the Devonian. And in particular insist that the cream strata and the jam strata are
Yeah, I mean, interesting, by the way, the Cambrian named it for Wills.
Very cool.
Right. Any other questions? I'm very happy to talk more about this at length with whoever wants to listen.
Will the trees be happy if you bring it on?
Oh yeah, that's a good question. Let's go to the yeah. Best tree.
So what makes it your favorite?
Oh, so there is no reason for it to be my favorite. It just makes me happy to look at it. Yeah.
Where can you look at it?
Sorry?
Where can you look at it?
Kelvin Grove.
Have you been to see it in Kelvin Grove?
Yeah, multiple times. You can even touch it.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Where is it? Upstairs?
No, downstairs. So they've got the downstairs in the life pavilion. They've got like the big room with like the extinct life, and right in the center there's There's a big trunk. Can't miss it. Yeah.
Do you think we can get one of those fossils to display in 1310?
Yeah, maybe.
Are there many other like fully binary trees like this?
Oh, that's a really good question. I actually really don't know. Like, yeah. Question to look.
Okay.
Yes.
Are there any species that generalize the ternary or not regular as well?
So there definitely are ternary ones. Actually, this is really good advice. So if you want to have a great time, for some definition of great, you can just go outside and look very closely at how trees grow their branches and their leaves. I think if you look at like an ash tree, it grows new like leaf-bearing branches by like splitting into 7 in a really particular pattern, and is like very consistent how it does it, like the various relative positioning of the 7 branches. Like trees really optimize for like covering area, right? And they do so by branching in really complex but like very deterministic ways.
So on the last tree, the actual bone, the
Yeah.
piece of bone.
The thing that we don't know what it is, yeah.
Yeah, go back on site.
Yeah.
So is that a kind of a misrepresentation now?
So this one, yeah. So this was a reconstruction from the 1850s. That was based on, he thought it was a tree, so he reconstructed it as like, he drew it as like, this might have been what it looked like, but it definitely didn't look like this.
Do you know where the fossil was on display for the prototype site?
I don't know. I mean, there are multiple fossils of it found. So I think. So what I think is that a lot of them probably haven't been on display, but might start being on display now with the breaking news. That museums who have it just in their like in their storage might like choose to put it on display. But I don't know much about like museum curation, so I don't know.
Yeah, the BBC article is saying that it's during the collection of the National Museum of Scotland, but it will be kept basically in Edinburgh in the collection centre. So I don't know whether it is.
Yeah. Although
it looks like it's going to be.
Although I think the Edinburgh University Museum of Natural History actually allows pre-arranged visits to their collection. So I've been really wanting to give them a call and like ask if I can come visit their collection and look at some choice specimens. I mean, I would also really like to go like see some trilobites there as well, but yeah, I don't know.
Is that all the questions?
I'd say, so it's a bit funny that botanists don't know how to define a tree. The foundations of their subject are broken. Much like mathematics.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, no one knows how to define anything, right? Anyway, right. I think we can end it and head upstairs.